So I did my project on Henrik Ibrov. He was born in 1828 in Skien, Norway, and that's a really removed place from most of Europe, not just physically, but also linguistically. At 15, he became an apprentice to a pharmacist, where he worked for over 6 years, and this is where he actually started to work on his writing. He also wrote his first play here. At 22, he moved to Christiania to study for a university entrance exam, which he actually did not pass. It was there that he began working in theater in Bergen, and that was his first job in theater. Once he'd kind of learned enough, he took another job in theater back in Christiania, and it was sort of a higher position, so he had more responsibility there. This is where he learned of the well-made play, which was popularized by French playwrights. It was really formulaic, and actually it was mostly plot-based, and really composed and set on drama and suspense, kind of equivalent to like a soap opera today. A lot of people really thought it was just sort of cheap suspense and thrills. Ibsen also disapproved of this, and he actually showed this in a couple of his plays, which were Brand, which he wrote in 1866, and Peer Gynt in 1867. They were both written to show character depth and development. Peer Gynt was more tragic. Beyond this, he left Norway for 27 years, and he only returned in 1891 at the age of 63 years old. It was during this time that he wrote 5 different plays: The Pillars of Society, A Dollhouse, which we discussed in class, Ghosts, An Enemy of the People, and The Wild Duck. These all had exemplary character development, but they were now also commenting on society and class. He introduced realism to the world of drama through these, but he also showed confrontation from a new angle and astounded his audience. This is really where he became the father of modern drama. I chose to do my analysis on A Dollhouse because, honestly, reading this play was really, it meant a lot to me, personally, so I decided to do, just kind of discuss it more in depth this way. The main things that stuck out to me were just kind of small details that honestly could have been missed over, but when you kind of go back through it, they stand out from the rest of sort of just the plot. Like even just Nora's marriage, the way it affects her friendships, even just with Mrs. Lind. She talks about the fact that it's been 8 years since she saw her, and I don't think it's a coincidence that it's also been 8 years since she married her husband, Torvald. Another thing that really stuck out to me was actually the really sexist implications from Torvald throughout the entire play, just through all of the weird ways that he talks to her through terms of endearment, and things like helpless and little and clueless and frivolous. And honestly, most of the things that he says to her in an endearing way are really offensive and insulting, so it's kind of creepy. Like, even when he describes his attraction to her, it's always to her frailty, which is really ironic because at the end of the play, when it comes down to it, he doesn't choose to save her. He is really only concerned with himself, and he's angry with her for putting him in this position, and even though she was just trying to help him, So you can see why Nora really takes that to heart, because the way he talks, you can't blame her for thinking, oh, at least now he'll be able to save me and really show it. But when it came down to it, he showed his true colors, and she realized she didn't know him at all. It sets up a time of events and expectations of women from society during this time really clearly. Even just that a woman can't sign up for a loan without having a man sign along with it. After the party also, where Torvald wants to, do some stuff, and she's like, no. And she says it really clearly, and he acts like she's playing coy and refusing to give a straight answer. And he says, aren't I your husband? And that stuck out to me because, today that would be no, that's not a response to that. That's not a question that you get to ask. That doesn't mean anything. How are you so dense? But, at the time, that's actually, she should be doing this for him. At this time, that's what was expected. And also, you can kind of see Nora's relationship with Dr. Rank, who is Torvald's best friend, versus the way that Torvald reacts to Mrs. Lind, who is Nora's best friend. Nora develops a strong relationship with Dr. Rank. He's over all the time. She talks with him. They're really close, and you can see that they're able to talk even when Torvald's not there, and they have these close, intense discussions. And he confides in her things that he didn't even confide in Torvald. When Mrs. Lind shows up, Nora's like so happy to see her. She's like, yeah, my friend's in town now. And Torvald's like, after she leaves, he just goes, oh, what an incredible bore. And it's just sort of revealing of the way their relationship is and just how one-sided it is. And the tiniest thing that really stuck out to me, because this seems like the way that Torvald views knitting versus embroidery, he says it's so ugly to watch, and then he says that, you know, embroidery is beautiful and talks about weaving things through, which is really interesting because it seems like such a small thing to get so irritated about, which is probably why it stuck out to me in the beginning. But I went back and looked it over afterward, after finishing the play, and it's really interesting because knitting is actually the process of taking both hands to weave this intricate pattern of knots, you know, tying the knot, not so subtle, and forming something just beautiful and full and a bigger picture. Whereas embroidery is, you know, one hand supporting the fabric and the other weaving beauty into it, which symbolizes their relationship a lot because he sees himself as the moneymaker and he sees himself as supporting the foundation, and she's just putting the beauty in. She does the dancing, she does the decorating, she buys the gifts, she throws the parties, she sings, you know, all this stuff. But it's not togetherness the way that she might want it to be. And even after the party, and he talks about, you know, she didn't want to leave, which was actually just because she didn't want him to see the note any sooner, and she didn't want to have to do all of this any sooner. She wanted to stay at the party and live out just sort of a fiction away from it, the reality. But he says exits have to be effective, which is awesome foreshadowing for when she leaves him at the end. Spoiler alert. What was really interesting to me were little things that Nora said throughout that I actually thought were lies. When Torvald didn't know who Mrs. Lind was and she says, oh, well, he was really jealous, so I just never mentioned you. I thought she was just like, oh, yeah, honestly, I just didn't value our relationship that much, but I'm lying to you. Like, but it turns out he was actually that jealous, like, which seems kind of unhealthy, honestly. And the way she says Torvald hates knitting when she's trying to get Mrs. Lind to leave her room, and I thought that was just an excuse, but no, he really does. And then I kind of realized that when she's actually lying, it's explicitly stated that in the stage directions that the actress must say those lines quickly. So it's kind of interesting also that she's not actually that great of a liar. She has a tell, and he's never picked up on it, which is even more revealing of their relationship, quite honestly. By the end of the play, all lies and truths are revealed. She feels that she's been passed from person to person, her father to Torvald. And even though she does care for them deeply, she finds that she has an obligation to herself, to pass herself on and own herself and her actions. She feels this void within, and she feels like she needs to fill it, and she can't fill it with her family anymore. And even just, you know, even that she might not love Torvald anymore, but her own children, she of course loves them, but she feels she has to leave. She feels she can't be a good mother because she's not able to teach them what she doesn't even know, which is how to really live for yourself. And I think that's really important.